What up? Hello again, podcast peeps. Thanks for joining us. My Fantasy Podcast from myfantasysportstalk.com. Glad you can join us. I don't even know where I'm at anymore. I see one familiar face in the crowd, Orlando. Hey, Orlando. But we've been invaded. We've been invaded by the outsiders, almost, so to speak, this week. No Dan Schalk. He's suspended. He's suspended for a week. And we brought in Ryan Thomas of Thomas Tech and Mr. DDT, Dylan Davis Tirado, both of myfantasysportstalk.com fame, familiar faces to you guys. They're just not always on the podcast, but great that you're here. Glad you can fill in for Dan. And this is going to be a wild show, which is our 30th episode this year. And Dan, if you're watching, I know you're sorry you missed that one. Ryan, what up?
What's up? Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here as always.
Back again. You caused so much chaos last week. You know,
I did.
Dan's like, I'm taking a break. You let him fill in. And let him deal with it. You're going to start getting hate mail. I hope you know that.
Bring it. I'm up for it.
I think you will be. And our man DDT repping New York. What up, dude?
Yes, son. And by the way, Dan, I know why you didn't come on the podcast this week. Because I beat you. Undefeated streak is That's right. God. That's right. I'm calling. That's right. 4-game winning streak. I'm on a roll. Let's go. Okay. I'm going to be.
You're not the only team with a 4-game winning streak, though.
I'll see you at the end of the year, man. You're going to get it down. I'll see you at the end of the year. So let's break it.
1 week at a time.
Ready for you.
Hold on. I'm getting a text from Dan right now. Dan says, "Why the hell did you bring DDT on the show? That was not necessary." Okay. Sorry, Dan. Yes, now DDT, of Fantasy League fame, taking out our man, the undefeated Dan Schalk. And hey, don't forget about me. I may not be doing very good, but I took out the other undefeated guy last week. So went into the week with 2 5-0 guys, and they both got knocked off, kind of like those Kansas City Chiefs did with the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. Not from the ranks of the unbeaten. I mean, it's going to be a great show today. Something tells me it's going to be out of control. Dan kind of maintained control. He checked me when I got out of hand. But something tells me we're missing that parental guidance today, and this is going to get off the rails pretty quickly. But it don't matter.
No way.
Be fine.
Hey. There's our man Orlando too. I forgot about him. You're such a veteran of the show. I almost forgot.
How'd you forget about me? I was
way down there on the bench. You know, such a veteran. You're like the Jeff Green for the Cavaliers. Y'all even remember Jeff Green played?
Wow.
They're building a team of veterans. You got brought in Derrick Rose, you Jeff Green. Slowly but surely, they're trying to be like those, like the Spurs used to do, bring in all the vets. But what up, dude?
I was here kicking back, seeing how long it would take for you to call me. But hey, you got to win this week, man. I got to give it up to you.
I'm only 1 game behind you now because you.
That is true, and I will give it to DDT because he's come. I think it's first time on a podcast besides the live draft, the draft coverage that we had, and he's ready to take a shot to Dan the man. I like that.
Well, I'm arrogant. I'm from Queens, so I'm arrogant.
Well, you're no more arrogant than Dan. Have you been watching the podcast?
I've been watching it a lot. Like the biggest one I think I watched was, I think the one where we did like the live fantasy football draft because I was supposed to come on and I couldn't because I was trying so hard to focus on who I was picking. But going back and listening to it. And listening with you guys,
was so entertaining.
You heard me make my picks, and you just talk so much smack about all the picks I made, especially when I picked Cam Newton and Kirk Cousins back to back. And you're like, "What's he doing?" And now you see what I'm doing.
Dan was making polls about how bad my team was going to be.
I wasn't there too. You had the team of geriatrics.
We all owe you an apology because I talked so much smack to you.
I mean, first of all, I didn't expect Zeke Elliott to play after week 1. I thought there was a good chance he wouldn't. Tom Brady is just old, and he's been surprising everybody, not just me. And then you had Adrian Peterson. What the? You hung on to him until he busted off for the biggest day of the year.
I was hanging on to him.
Contacts on the inside.
Let me tell you something. Your man Adrian Peterson put up more points, fantasy points, last week than probably 4 of my running backs have the last 3 or 4 weeks in one pop. So
I was hoping so bad that he would get traded. I was hoping that he would find a place that was a better fit.
But did you really think he still had something left, though?
I honestly did. I thought he had maybe a year or two. I can't doubt the guy that tore his knee and then ran for a little over 2,000 yards. I don't know.
I mean, that's true. It's just the age and the history of injury. So
yeah.
It's all going to come mounting up on you. But okay, so we've already got sidetracked. I don't even know what we've covered already, but it was a lot in a short period of time. Got all these guys: Brandon Reed, Ryan Thomas, Dylan Davis-Trotto, and the vet on the bench down there, Orlando Torres. So tonight we're basically probably just going to mix it up, do whatever. Of course, we got your mailbag questions to answer, so we'll get into that of the NFL and NBA variety. Big night in the NBA last night as NBA play opened up with 2 possible previews to conference championships coming down the line with the Celtics and Cavs meeting up and the Rockets and the Warriors in that nightcap. So we'll talk, of course, about that NBA opening night and everything that happened there, gruesome and otherwise. We'll dip into that My Fantasy Sports Talk NBA Fantasy League that all of us are in except Brian, and that'll be his silent time. We'll ask him to turn around and face the corner.
Whoever drafted Durant or LeBron is gonna win. We'll just leave it at that. Or be in the finals, I should say.
I'm going to be silent too because I totally missed the draft and totally forgot about it, and I didn't get an alert. So my team looks garbage. So I know I'm not winning anything.
Well, so me and Orlando will talk about the MyFantasySportsTalk.com NBA Fantasy League.
Ryan and I will just both argue about who's better, Yankees or Astros.
That's fine. That's fine.
I don't want to talk about it. No.
It's not on the schedule tonight. We'll leave that alone. Though we just scored another run, so ha 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 ha.
I got the alert. I'm good. I don't even know.
Okay, give the podcast an update. What is it?
All right, so right now we are in the bottom of the 5th. 4-0 Yankees. Runners on 3rd and 1st. Didi just had a nice single into center
field. So y'all know that's where Dan is. I wonder if Dan's watching the podcast and the game simultaneously. That would be something.
He
probably is, but he probably has.
He's not liking either one of them right now.
Ooh, Altuve missed
sick right now.
Oh, please, Dan, I hope you saw that. Altuve just missed that one.
All right, so following on with the rundown, we'll talk around about the NFL, just talk about everything that happened in the NFL, the week of the NFL. Then, of course, we'll get to those mailbag questions before we end this show. Promise you a lot to cover there, and we appreciate the questions every single week. So let's get into it, guys. Something tells me this isn't going to be hard to get conversation from you guys tonight. So let's talk about the NBA opening night. My opening statement there said that this could very well be a conference championship previews on both sides. So you're basically your Final Four in the NBA. Celtics and Cavs in the East and the Rockets Warriors in the West. You guys agree? What did you think about opening night? Start with Orlando Torres.
I thought it was a great night for basketball. Besides the gruesome injury, I thought, obviously the Celtics are going to need a lot more scoring out of Kyrie Irving. They didn't plan for that, and I thought the Golden State and Houston game was just great, back and forth, and for James Harden to go in there and just spoil the party. They had their celebration that felt like it was never going to end. As a fan, I was like, oh my God, I don't think I asked for this. Like, I hate the Warriors enough as it is. Like, I was ready to flip the channel, but for the rival neighbors down the street just to go in there and not destroy them, but take it right at the end was a pretty good. And overall, it was a pretty good basketball game.
Do you agree that those are probably the 4 favorites to wind up in the conference championship games?
I think early on, yes, those are possible favorites. But I think the West, the way it is, it could easily shift. So Golden State, I would agree with. Houston is going to see how it plays out. As far as the East, I would agree with that.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask you about. Even with what happened to Gordon Hayward last night, Boston Celtics still 1 or 2?
I think Cleveland's 1, and I think the Wizards, depending on how the Celtics get it together, could sneak up to 2 because I still like the Celtics' chances. They're still going to finish top 4 in the East, but I think they're going to have to rely a lot more on Kyrie now with Hayward out.
right, let's go to the new guy on the block, DDT. What do you think about last night and those 4 teams' outlook and what happened to Gordon?
Well, I will say this before I say anything. Shout out and prayers to Gordon Hayward. That was one of the most horrific things I've ever seen. And I really hope he gets a speedy recovery. As far as reports go, he's out for the season. I don't see him coming back. He had a fractured ankle, and it looked like also a shattered tibia, which is the lower of the leg. So it's something that Paul George, I don't think his injury, it compares in severity to it. So Celtics are in a hole in that regard.
I was trying to think of the other night last night when you guys were kind of talking about this on the message board. Do you remember? I finally figured out it was Julius Randle who that happened. Something similar to like that happened on opening night a couple of years ago, and that's what I was trying to think of. Man, it hurts even more when it's opening night.
It's hard,
especially with Cleveland bringing in all the new pieces, making the moves. Thought they really had enough pieces, and how good did Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum look?
I was going to say that was my highlight of last night. I'll get to the Houston Golden State game, but my God, Jaylen Brown looks amazing. I mean,
he did. He was dropping shots and everything.
This cat steps on the floor and is going up. Even Marcus Smart, I want to give a shout out to him too. And they're just D'ing up everyone on the Cleveland. So no matter how that game went, because it was a great game all the way to the end, there is something about Boston, even without Gordon Hayward. I don't like their chances of winning 1. I like their chances of getting 2 or 3. I think this team has a lot of grit and a lot of unity. I think it needs time to come together. And along with the same thing with Houston and Golden State. I don't like giving predictions early because these teams change so dramatically around the trade deadline and so around playoff time. I would not.
Well, in injuries, I think a lot of people would not pick Boston going as high. Like I probably wouldn't. I don't know. Without Gordon Hayward, I don't know. We'll have to see. The team's gonna have to come a long way. Ryan, what do you think about opening night? I know you're not even an NBA fan. You're refusing to participate in our games altogether.
No, I'm trying. I'm really trying to get back into it. I was a huge NBA fan, back when MJ and those guys were playing, but it's just not the same as it was then. But if we're talking about here and now, I thought that the way the NBA puts matchups together for opening night, they put the big stories on. You get the Celtics, you get the Cavs, you get the Rockets, you get the Warriors. You know that they're going to schedule the matchups very well for the opening night, and that is always a treat to watch. But in terms of the end result, it was just with the Hayward injury, it put such a damper on what I thought was kind of the end of the Celtics getting Hayward and Irving kind of added or ended the parity that was in the Eastern Conference, where it was just whatever team LeBron was on was going to be representing the finals. I realistically thought that the Celtics would have a really good chance at beating the Cavs in the Eastern Conference Finals had everyone stayed healthy. Now I really don't know.
Yeah, it changes things. It definitely changes things, and that's why it's kind of unfortunate. Gordon Hayward's first real NBA, game in a Irish Boston Celtic Irish jersey, not the best of luck for him. So it hurts a little bit more when it's the first game of the season. So
I think what's crazy is that's a play that he was used to running in Utah with the Jazz. That's a play he's run literally hundreds of times. So it's crazy that the play that they set up for him, it was fortunate that it happened there. And Draymond suffered an injury too. I mean, it's not season injury in the Wars on him, but that's another one to keep an eye on because I know that might hit them. A big man like that down low, could be, if Draymond was healthy the whole game, I don't know if Houston comes out the winner because at some points during the game, they were down by double-digit points.
So we got a couple of NBA questions to finish the night off in our mailbag this week, one pertaining to Gordon Hayward. So we'll talk a little bit more about him and the Celtics specifically a little bit later. And then also a question pertaining to last night's nightcap, which is the Rockets and the Warriors. So we'll get in and break down that matchup a little bit more, so we won't talk much about that. But quickly, this is kind of like the maybe real opening night of the NBA outside those top guys playing last night. So just quickly here, because I know we got several NBA fans all repping someone else. all or different teams, that is, right here on this podcast. So, but Philadelphia is at Washington, Charlotte is at Detroit, Brooklyn is at Indiana, Miami's at Orlando, Milwaukee's at Boston, New Orleans is at Memphis, Atlanta is at Dallas, Denver at Utah, Minnesota is at San Antonio. You ain't going to the game, Orlando?
And nobody stayed true, and I made my commitment to be here for the show tonight.
Man, appreciate it. You are a big baller. Portland is at Phoenix. Houston is at Sacramento. What are you talking about, DDT? What's your problem?
You know what I'm talking about. Although, no, I don't want to talk about Big Baller Brand. Please don't. Please, just let's because if we go into that, it's just gonna cause we're gonna lose. It's just no. It's a divisive issue.
Yeah, that wasn't my intention because I'm right there with you. Dan is the Big Baller Brand fan.
Don't get me wrong. I hope Lonzo Ball balls out for LA. As a player, I hope he turns LA into a championship giant. But his dad, please just sit there in your seat and cheer for your kid, please.
That ain't gonna happen. What were you gonna say, Orlando?
No, I don't think I was gonna say anything. Right? Not touching on the Big Baller Brand. So go ahead.
Okay, well, yeah. I don't even remember what I was going to say. I have so much when I start thinking about that, the thoughts just stack in my head. Okay, this is what I was going to say. Lonzo is the best ball brother, guys. I'm making that bold prediction right now and telling you guys. Lonzo is by far the best ball brother. It's kind of downhill from here. You can go on YouTube and watch LaMelo play in some of the high school games and AAU games. Okay, yeah. Lonzo is the best ball brother. So, I wish them all well. Do you guys think – I'm going to ask DDT because you seem to be fired up about this, and then we'll let it go. I promise. Do you think LaMelo wanted to be pulled out of school? And even if he did, do you think he might not regret that 10 years from now?
So my take on the young NBA athlete, in particular regards to coming out of high school, moving into college, doing 1 year, and then going to the NBA, the one and dones, I hate it. I can't stand it. Because with him being pulled out of high school to just focus on basketball, he's losing some part of the social upbringing that all of us go through at that age. But
that was my exact point.
But more importantly, if I could actually go a little deeper with this, I find it a constant trend with young college players moving into the NBA not finishing with a 4-year degree detrimental to their careers going forward, because not everybody makes it in the NBA.
Oh, and so many people die. So many people's careers die in the European leagues and overseas leagues.
Exactly.
And you're not making a whole lot of money there. You're making a pretty good salary, but it's short-lived. It's very short-lived, and not enough money to where you're going to be retiring in a few years. So you're going to be smacked in the face by the real world.
Indeed, and more importantly, you're also putting yourself in a position not only to be unable to succeed, you're putting yourself in a position where you can't be viable to be a part of a company or a corporation, or to have a trade, a skill. You have to think about this for a minute. Shaquille O'Neal has a PhD from LSU in economics and statistics and business management. Shaquille O'Neal, one of the most wackiest guys on the court. There are a lot of players who went back and finished. To kind of pull from an example, look at what happened with Andrew Luck before he went to the Colts. He would not start with the team until he finished at Stanford.
Yeah, Tim Duncan, one of Orlando's big guys. Tim Duncan, did it right. That's just not the way it's done anymore, though.
It's not. It's because it's all about the brand of the player, and that's what LeVar Ball is trying to do. He wants to expound the Ball brand because he knows how good LaMelo is. We all know how good LaMelo is. I've watched all of his mixtapes. They're excellent. LaMelo's going to be a fantastic player, but right now it's just a matter of the father is more focused on his son's success in the NBA more than his success in the real world, because the NBA is just a fantasy to what the real world has for him.
I guess I agree with that. We'll end that conversation there. I agree with that. It's just, I don't know. Don't regret something in a few years that you missed out on. And I think the ultimate thing here, as far as basketball goes, is I would much rather LaMelo be in high school playing high school competition, at least organized competition, and not these pickup games in gyms. I don't know. I think there is something to missing out on proms and girlfriends and friends and parties and graduations and social activities, like DDT said. So that's the thing. Just I don't know. If that's truly what he wanted, then that was his decision. But I question that. So I don't know. That was it from NBA opening night. Anything else? I mean, and I'm including tonight as well, guys. Orlando, who are you playing? Minnesota?
Yeah, Minnesota. And we're playing them without Kawhi Leonard, so that's gonna be an interesting game to see how LaMarcus. I mean, like I said, I know it's only been preseason, but he looks good. The Spurs just gave him an extension for another 3 years for like 70-something million. So I have mixed feelings about that compared to how LaMarcus was last season. But, hopefully it was the best move. That just tells me that we're probably not getting a pretty big name free agent in the future, because we don't really get a lot of those here in San Antonio, or a big power forward like LaMarcus. So I want to see if we could just step up. I know it's opening night because
So that's what I really want to know from you. Who do you got in this game? Man, this is not your old Minnesota team. This is not a cupcake first game anymore. This is a team with a lot of hype around them, and y'all are gonna have to earn this.
Dangerous.
I'm gonna stick with the home team. Barely. Not being a homer, I think the Spurs pull it off at home. But the same thing is, wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota goes in there and shocks them. But I'm gonna stick with the Spurs, barely just knocking them off.
So my Grizzlies are hosting the New Orleans Pelicans. I'm in the same situation. Memphis has got to put up or shut up here. It could be scary. It could be a scary season this year. I just heard that Tyreke Evans has not been performing in the preseason like the Grizzlies organization really hoped. I don't know, maybe he'll kick it into high gear when the games really matter. Chandler Parsons is going to be coming off the bench to not put pressure on him physically, right away from the get-go. So he'll be coming off the bench and playing that bench role. So we'll see how it goes tonight versus the Pelicans with Rajon Rondo, Anthony Davis, and, of course, DeMarcus Cousins. So big test there tonight for Memphis. So DDT, who do you root for, man? You got the Knicks on. You don't like Brooklyn at all? You don't root for Brooklyn?
No, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I grew up, when I was growing up, I grew up in Brooklyn, but we didn't have a team. And I've always been a Knicks fan. It's how I've been brought up. When the Nets came to Brooklyn, I was like, yeah, whatever. But I think this year, with the Crosstown rivalry not what it ended up wanting to be, I do feel that there is potential with the Nets this year to slightly possibly be better than the Knicks. However, I do also feel like this is an opportunity to see what Kristaps Porzingis really has. But the highlight, really, of the opening night for NBA is when the Knicks are going to face the Thunder and Carmelo faces the Knicks for the first time. It's going to be
tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, MSG. It's going to be one of those games where I'm going to just have to sit down, lock the door, stare at the TV intently, because I am so nervous to how this game's going to go. I don't expect the Knicks to win, number one.
I don't either.
I don't expect the Knicks to win. Don't think I'm coming into this thing now. Because listen, if we beat the Thunder tomorrow, I'm going to run this through the streets, because that would be my Christmas gift.
Orlando is.
Yeah.
Are the New York Knicks going to beat the Oklahoma City Thunder tomorrow night?
Not a chance. No.
It's going to be a blowout. I don't think we'll even score 70 points. It's going to be a blowout. I don't know what this team has. If Kristaps Porzingis is going to get better this year,
you just don't quite know. That's the beauty of the beginning of a season. Everyone thought those New York Jets were going to go winless, and they are not. They were sitting at the top of the AFC. So
I thought we were going to go winless, so I can't really say anything.
A lot did, but All right, so beginning of a NBA season, opening night, last night, all that happened, opening nights tonight for most of the squads of those New York Knicks of DDT, so he'll have to wait another night. But what we're going to do next is talk about the MyFantasySportsTalk.com NBA Fantasy League, just real briefly before we get into those mailbag questions that you guys submitted, so hang tight right there. We'll get into the Fantasy League of MFST, My Fantasy Sports Talk, next. You're listening to and watching My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. Don't reload your browser. It's Brandon Reed, but it's not Dan Schalk on here. For the first time in 30 episodes, he missed the show, and it's all because I brought in DDT, or that was the rumor anyway, so he hightailed it to Florida. At Del Boca Vista, Phase 2, I believe, is where he's hanging out.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
Dan, can we switch?
He's riding around in the Cadillac, the caddy. That's Dylan Davis, Tirado, DDT. Ryan Thomas is here, too, back for another week since he stirred up so much controversy last week. He's got his own separate mailbag now.
What was the controversy? Can you fill me in?
Yeah, I want to know, too.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just talking. I'm sure.
Hey,
I don't read all the mailbag questions, so I guarantee you probably stirred up something, and you got hate mail sitting in a bag somewhere. I can promise you that.
We'll see next week. We'll see what this.
This
hate mail is.
When Dan is editing the questions and has time to, you're gonna get it, buddy. So you might want to make sure your calendar is clear next Wednesday, so you can rebut.
You did agree with me though on the Kareem Hunt thing, though.
Oh, no. Yeah, we agreed on a lot. Yeah, we agree on a lot. We disagree on some things.
Yeah.
We agree on a lot. And that's how it is with all my friends and colleagues. So. And Orlando Torres, the veteran on the bench down there, just like, hey, put me in, coach. I'm ready to play.
Exactly.
So the MyFantasySportsTalk.com Fantasy League. Ryan, do you want to talk about anything real quick before we get into this league, which you're not in?
Let's see here. Couple weeks in Dylan's backyard. I don't know how far away he lives from MSG, but in case you don't know,
never far.
Never far. In case you don't know, November 4th, UFC 217, Michael Bisping will be putting his middleweight title on the line versus George St. Pierre. We always talk in sports about who the best of all time is, Tom Brady, Michael Jordan. We debate that constantly. In the MMA world, in the mixed martial arts world, it's either Anderson Silva or GSP. I'm here to tell you the best of all time will be fighting Michael Bisping November 4th. If you have the $50, the $60, put the money down. Put the money down. And buy
Perfect timing.
I love the advertisement. That's great.
But yeah, put the money down and buy it. Do it. You won't regret it. There's 3 title fights. It's so rare that there's not just one title fight, not 2 title fights, but 3 title fights on one card. You have to buy it.
Okay. Thank you for that PSA brought to you by the UFC.
Dana White's getting rich off of me.
Gold.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You better be getting paid. You better be getting paid something, dude. Got these promos like this. All right. So the MFST Fantasy Football League our NBA League is well underway. I'm playing a guy by the name of Daniel Kalura. So shout out to all the fans playing in the league with us this year. New York Storm. So he might be hanging around you somewhere, DDT. Daniel Kalura, or you too, Ryan. He's the New York Storm, currently winning 117-67, 117-67, but I'm just getting started. About to explode tonight. Colby Gatz, he's up in there with 192 points. How's he got almost 200 already? What is he doing?
I think he started the whole Celtics team yesterday, and that's why.
55 from Kyrie right there.
He must be from Boston. That's like the whole lineup.
So I don't know. We really haven't heard from him either. We heard from him last night. It's bad. I feel sorry for him and all the Celtics fans. He's beating out of your Teague, which is Orlando Torres, by 103 right now. but
just like you, I'm just getting started.
Oh yeah. These are skewed numbers right now. We got. Let's see, Patrick last name. That's what you're called. So shout out to you. You are known as Tyrone Shoelace Dribblers. You're up in there playing last year's champ, which is Dan Shaw. Toodles, 53-58 right now. Dan is up. So just getting started there. Malachi David, our guy. 100 points right now. He is playing our other guy, Dylan Davis Torado, at 118. You put up some good numbers there. You must have got 120 now. How many people did you have playing last night? I see you had Harden with 58.
Yeah, Harden was a big one. Because and just to cite for those who don't know, I missed the draft. So you're looking at a team that was put together with auto draft, which is actually something I've never tried before. So I'm kind of curious to see how this goes. Because
we'll break down the team in just a second. You did okay. You had James Harden with the first pick, so which is my MVP.
Brandon, my team is horrible.
We'll break it down. We'll break it down. We'll see. So then we've got a couple more games here in the league. Graham Sweet of MyFantasySportsTalk.com is playing Moncada Ballers. He's winning right now, very low-scoring game. And then Casey Birch of the site is playing Nick Cinquino, 137-36 right there. So that one's still early too, but our man Casey Birch is down about 100 bucks. Very, very early. Very, very early, just getting started. So let's break down that team real quick for the My Fantasy Podcast Nation real quick. Let's see just how bad that squad is, Mr. DDT. You want to take it away? Take it away, man. Analyze your team.
I mean, well, I think I made a couple of changes to the lineup. Basically, how I'm going about this year, because it was a mistake on my part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and just look at this team through the first 3 matchups, see how the points come up, see what things I can change, see what moves I can make. I'm very, very, very curious as to how James Harden can carry me. But I don't know.
It's not a bad team, man. You got Jimmy Butler too. We'll have to see what he does.
I know. I'm just because it wasn't my influence on the team. I understand. Am skeptical. But
so then, saying tomorrow road, you somehow win the championship. Not saying you will, but somehow. So then this championship is fake, right? It's fabricated because you didn't actually put this team together. Is that what you're saying?
I would say that the basketball gods have favored me, and I got a
from what that statement you just said, it would sound like a fake
championship. I understand where you're coming from, Orlando. I would think that may be more so true in football, but as many games as there are in the NBA and the management you got to do every single day, then
I'm just giving the new guy a hard time. That's all.
I agree. And it would break my heart. I probably wouldn't even keep up with the league if I didn't draft the players, because honestly, the draft in any sport is the most fun part of it to me.
Yeah, it was very fun sleeping through it.
Not a bad team, man. Not a bad team. So Goran Dragic, James Harden, Jimmy Butler, Serge Ibaka, Brook Lopez, Bradley Beal, Jay Crowder, Willie Cauley-Stein, Andre Iguodala, Zaza Pachulia, George Hill, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Marcus Morris, Ersan Ilyasova, and TJ McConnell. So I don't know, not too bad. Auto pick usually does you okay, They usually do you okay. So
they usually get the best player available.
Yeah, it'll give you the best player like Jeff Fisher's numbers mediocre around there, right? Auto drafts.
Yes, we'll see what happens.
I'm just fun.
We'll see what happens. Let's go. Woohoo! Yankees are putting them on base. We got runners on second and
score
third.
Update. Give me a score update.
It is still 4-0. They have pulled Keuchel.
Give me a score update. What is it? 4-0. Okay.
It is 4-0 Yankees. Runners on second and third.
No.
Bottom to 6.
Why?
Because, John, your Red Sox and Farrell like to cheat.
Oh, come on.
And
don't
they
even get me started with that. People have been stealing
and we're not going to get started with that. It's not on the subject matter for tonight. We'll talk about this another time.
We'll talk on Facebook.
Just saying. Cheaters, pumpkin eaters. Okay, moving on. And they're pulling Harris out, so now he's gone. Let's go. Just keep running through him.
Dan has got to be flipping out at this point. You think he is?
Why would he?
I don't know. They're on the
not going to like it.
All I want to say to Dan is one thing I want to say to Dan: those predictions you made at the beginning of the postseason, ouch. It's once again the Yankees are going to be the most hated team in Major League Baseball once again.
I had no bias I said Cleveland would win the World Series this year. I was wrong.
Ooh.
But I didn't even pick my own team to win it this year. I didn't have the faith in the Red Sox that they would go all the way this year. I didn't think they had all the pieces.
I didn't have faith in the Yankees either, but we're here. So, go Yankees.
Yeah.
We're here. I'm sorry. We're here. Let's go.
Let's go. I believed in you from month number 1. And while a lot of others crumbled, my faith was always there. And I'm a Yankees hater. I'll be honest with you. I've never liked the Yankees. But
we appreciate your hate.
They do. They do appreciate it. They love it.
We do. Oh, no. God, I love it. I love being able to walk the streets and be holding my head up high and be like, these Yankees suck. Like, thank you.
Just like football with the Cowboys, when they're doing well, the league is fun. When the Yankees are doing well, it does make things interesting. I'll give them that.
Making me watch baseball again.
Yeah. Okay, we'll see what happens.
All right. We're getting on track there.
I don't even know where we are anymore. What page are we?
Fantasy basketball. My team is Ish. Moving on.
Okay. All right. There you go. So we don't really have to talk much about this. It's still so early. But what I would like to do is just encourage you guys to send us those fantasy mailbag NBA questions as well. Help us along this process and bring up those trade scenarios that you may have. And some of you have already started submitting those NBA mailbag questions. So appreciate that. So, I don't know, there's all your NBA talk, your NBA, myfantasysportstalk.com fantasy league talk, your impromptu baseball talk, which is probably, again, to reoccur at some point in the podcast. So, but we'll move on to talk about the NFL next. You're listening to and watching My Fantasy Podcast from myfantasysportstalk.com. Brandon Reed, Orlando Torres, Ryan Thomas, and Dylan Davis Chirado. I got to watch what I'm saying. There's a lot of new phrases I'm uttering tonight, but that's the crew. Believe it or not. Don't update your Chrome browser. That is really what's going on. And no Dan Sharp.
The money team.
Can't believe you missed the 30th episode, guy.
No.
Yeah, don't speak
money
for
team.
me. Yeah, don't speak for me either.
If we only had 3 tonight, I would have said the Shield is back together. But
my God,
he could have been podcasting from some beach somewhere in Florida, but nope. Heineken in his hand.
That's okay.
That would have been awesome, but hey, we didn't realize that we were going to be on at the same time as the Astros game, so that was out. A very critical Astros game as well, which our man DDT has been updating us on. So still 4-0. What inning is it?
It's still bottom of the 6th. Gardner is up. It's 0-2 in the count. 2 outs. Runners still on second and third. They have new Houston Astros pitcher's name is Peacock.
Brad Peacock. He's pretty good.
Brandon Peacock. He's very good, actually.
Yeah.
He was phenomenal when they were trying to come back in Game 2. And that was a great game. So, yeah, he's out there. He's only thrown 3 pitches. He's settling in. Things have calmed down now. So we'll see what happens.
Is it still? It's still 4-0.
It's still 4-0. Yeah,
4-0.
Still 4-0. Still 4-0. Yankees. Judges on deck.
Astros in a hole there. We'll see what happens. So last week in the NFL, guys, we saw the Chiefs go down for the first time all season. We saw Aaron Rodgers go down probably for this season. We saw Adrian Peterson reemerge with, God, what do you have? 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. I don't even remember. Ryan,
yes, he did.
Was on his team. Big game for Adrian Peterson back from the dead, the NFL dead anyway. So out of everything we saw last week, what stood out to you guys the most? And just we're getting closer to halfway through this thing. What's going on in the NFL? Ryan, we'll start with you since you missed out on all the NBA talk.
The biggest takeaway from this past week, you mentioned the Chiefs lost. The Chiefs have a huge game this coming week against the Raiders. The Raiders have kind of fallen off a cliff. the Chiefs don't want to be the team that falls off a cliff as they have done in years past. So that's a big divisional matchup. So the Chiefs losing to the Steelers was huge because this next game against Oakland makes it that much more important for the division for both teams. And then it's obviously Aaron Rodgers going down. I feel for anybody that drafted him as their fantasy quarterback because there's no replacing that guy on your fantasy team. There's just not. There's no replacing him in fantasy. There's no replacing him on the field. Brett Hundley is getting thrown to the wolves, but I think he'll do okay with the weapons that they have, but I don't think the Packers will make the playoffs.
It's not like they're 4-2 right now. And here's the other thing about the Packers is that running game is not going to help out Brett Hundley very much. So that's when you talk about throwing them to the wolves, that hurts even further there. So we do have if I'm not mistaken, we have a mailbag question about that a little bit later. So yeah, we'll kick off the mailbag question and talk about the Packers specifically. But let me ask you, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but you started AP on your fantasy team last week, right? You got those points.
Yes, I did. I got those points. I was pretty happy with that.
I'm really surprised you even held on to him that long because there was not much of a chance that he was going to do much in New Orleans. Alvin Kamara stepping up like that, man,
yeah.
He wasn't getting touches.
Alvin Kamara is a guy that I really liked coming out of the draft, and he was somebody that really filled that system stylistically really well and kind of phased AP out of town, kind of ran him out of town. I was hoping that before the season when I saw that AP was signing with the Saints, I thought then and there that it wasn't a good fit at all. I just didn't think he would fit their style of offense, the rotational style of offense.
It almost felt like it was just to stick it to the Vikings, right? Like maybe he would come in and get a lot of touches in week number 1 and then bam, just run it down your throat. And
that's a fair point. It just him getting traded to the Cardinals, I think, was kind of bittersweet for the Cardinals to lose David Johnson, but to get a guy like that in AP who I think has a year or two left in the tank. We'll see what he does next week, but so far so good for him and the Cardinals.
So reactions, DDT from the 6th week of the NFL, all that stuff we just hit on, or anything else? How about your Giants, man? I don't know if they're your Giants, but I can't figure out this year in the NFL.
No, I'm a Jets fan. No, I'm a Jets fan.
Okay. All right.
No.
A team you're familiar with then.
I will say this, because it's fantasy related. I'm slowly breathing sighs of relief because honestly, Dan should have beat me. But I had the Broncos defense and Brandon McManus, the kicker for the Broncos. And Brandon kicked one of the worst games I have ever seen. He missed 2 field goals and immediately almost put me at 4-3 in the fantasy league. And that's more important than the Giants' season right now because the Giants are done. There's nothing to say about the Giants. The Giants are horrible.
You were lucky the Titans were up as they were in the last few minutes because otherwise Mariota would have got that other 2 points.
I was looking Mariota through the interception.
Let's
be real for a minute.
Yeah, it got really close. It got really close on Monday night.
I was sweating. I went to sleep hoping I would win. I woke up with happiness.
Never say Dan almost beat you. I don't know why you felt the need to throw that in there. That was like a thorn
Ryan,
in the
did
side.
you see how Mariota can't – listen, it was 22.5 points. If he would have tied me or beat me by 22.5, it would have been devastating. 20 points. That's scary. It's just – Dan is one of the dangerous fantasy football players I've ever had to go up against. It was one of those weeks where I honestly had to show whether my team's going to be good or not. And now coming out of that with a win, feels great about this team.
You didn't I'm the one that got lucky, dude. I'm lucky Aaron Rodgers went down. Looking at it, Mike, I'm not really sure that guy would have beat me. Dakota Day, Prestige Worldwide, I'm not sure he would have beat me anyway unless Aaron Rodgers would have had like close to 40. I ended up winning by a lot, I think.
I think Rodgers also going down for the Packers, I think kind of puts Hundley in a week-to-week basis. I don't see him as a long-term regular season use. I really feel, and I can't believe I'm saying this, and I'm opening up a can of worms on this, but could somebody please sign Colin Kaepernick? Because if you sign someone else that we just don't know and we don't care is in the league, this is now becoming one of the darkest seasons the NFL has ever faced in its long-time history. This season has been a dumpster fire of bad publicity and just horrific officiating, especially with that Jets call on Sunday with Jets and the Patriots, where they literally disallowed a touchdown because they thought the ball was fumbled while making a football move into the end zone. And it's just, with the Packers and what they have to go up against in the weeks forward, I don't see them even probably winning no more than 3 or 4 games. If they're lucky.
Something I just thought about, what if Colin Kaepernick decides to become an NFL referee? You think that would be allowed? Then he could screw the NFL from within inside.
It would be poetic justice times 1,000. I would write a book. That would be my favorite article to write.
Yeah, now that is crazy.
How Colin Kaepernick recreated poetic justice.
That's a nutty scenario, but that would be awesome.
God.
Orlando, what happened in week 6? As far as our picks go, you're tied with Dan, but y'all both slipped a little bit more behind me.
It was a horrible week. Horrible week for picks. Everything you expected to happen, the exact opposite happened. I'm surprised Big Ben didn't throw 5 touchdowns in Arrowhead, because that's how crazy the week was. You got the Falcons being up 17-0. And, they just blow another lead. I guess that's just what the Falcons do. They just come out there, build leads, and then they blow them at the end. To the Dolphins, obviously the Aaron Rodgers injury. It was a crazy week in the NFL. It was nice to see, though. I will say, even as a Cowboys fan, it was nice to see Eli Manning going to Denver. Who would have thought that without Odell and all their wide receivers that they would finally click? And for Eli Manning to just put the team on his shoulders like the way he did on Sunday night, to go in there and stick it to Denver was awesome as a football fan, to be honest. I mean, it was great to see Eli go in there, and it'd be awesome if you could go into Seattle and do the same damn thing.
So who is Denver right now is my question. After that loss, of course, of the Giants, but you also got to remember the Bills went in there. It was at the Bills, right? Ryan, it was in Buffalo, but still. And I guess the Bills are riding a streak there, but this is a Broncos team that destroyed your Cowboys, Orlando, and then lose to the Bills, turn around and beat the Raiders, and then follow that up with a loss to the winless Giants. What's going on this year? That's why my picks look so horrible.
Well, I know they've had some injuries to offense. Trevor Siemian's not turning out to be the quarterback that they thought he would be. Same thing with Osweiler. I mean, they brought him in. Same thing going to Dylan's point. They brought in Osweiler over Cap, which is ridiculous. But, the Broncos are a bit of a mess. I know Emmanuel Sanders has been out. Demarius Thomas is banged up. The running game is still suspect. I do like C.J. Anderson, but he's not a guy you feel comfortable about starting, or you just never know which weeks he's going to go off against. He destroyed the Cowboys, but I mean, come on. Cowboys are lacking in that secondary. So, it's, that division is just going to be hard to guess how it finishes, because I know the Chargers are 2-4 right now, but, the way the division is going, no one would be surprised if you see a team like Denver drop and a team like San Diego, like Los Angeles, go up in the ranks. So I'm still trying to figure out Denver as well.
One more. Sorry, guys. I had my mute on. A couple of more, 2 more quick things I want to get you guys discussion on is, hey, how about them Bears in the Mitchell Trubisky era? Came down, really lost a tough one to Minnesota in his debut. And then they come back and beat the Ravens in Baltimore this week. Bad. So I'd say watch out for them. Mitchell Trubisky. We'll see what that feels. It just seems like they're maybe more energized right now, and they're not the healthiest. They really don't have that many weapons out there, honestly, around him. But they seem to be doing better. That, and also, guys, how about the Rams are 4-2, 3-0 on the road? What?
Hey,
crazy.
Who talked them up before the season? And I got all the hate mail. I got all the hate mail for that Rams piece.
Well, it's good. I'm not going to be the only one.
I didn't see this in Jared Goff ever based on year one. Maybe he's getting the playbook, man. I don't know. You did, and I was probably right there with you. This turnaround has been great, as Dan calls. Who's the quarterback? Sean
McVay.
Yeah, Sean McVay, the head coach.
Sean McVay. Yeah, Sean
quarterback
McVay.
whisperer. Yeah,
Dan calls him the quarterback whisperer. Yep.
Yeah, he
obviously
deserves a lot of credit for sure. A coach that young, they talk about how young he is, and that's obvious. But it's like, well, he's bringing in a decent staff. Wade Phillips is their defensive coordinator. You have to have some pull in order to bring guys like that in, and he did so. So good for him.
3-0 on the road. Wow. Now that's making a statement, and that's not a bad team. A bad team or a mediocre team doesn't do that. I don't care who you're playing. You win 3 straight start of the season, 4-2 and 3-0 on the road, and then you're a pretty solid team that's got it together. What do you guys think about Trubisky and the new Bears?
Well, I feel like they still should have waited. I get the whole thing, but I still got to see more because I think Sunday he threw 8 passes. Or, how many passes did he throw? If anything, Jordan Howard was a huge workhorse. Tariq Cohen threw a touchdown. I think Zach Miller starts to get more work. But as far as Trubisky, I like the guy. I hope he succeeds. But I still got he didn't toss the ball that much. But that goes to show you that the Bears would do whatever it takes to protect Mitchell Trubisky because they got 2 viable running backs who they're just going to feed the ball to. And Trubisky, he's pretty good right now from what I've seen, but he needs some more pass catchers, and the passing game hasn't really been that efficient so far.
I remember the draft show that we did. Obviously that was the shock of the draft was Chicago taking him or trading up 1 pick to get him. I don't even remember what they traded to San Francisco, but I just remember thinking he probably would have been there had they just waited because I don't think San Francisco was going to take him. But it really looks like that was the move that they needed to make because outside of Trubisky, Mike Glennon is just garbage. There's never been a point in his career where he's looked like he's been a franchise quarterback. So, maybe they put in Trubisky a little bit too soon, and like Orlando said, they didn't really have to rely on him too much. But you're not going to learn you're going to learn by reading a clipboard. But your best chance at getting better is being on the field. So,
well, he's got those classic early game manager stats going on right now. Not throwing for a lot, not throwing for a lot of numbers, but he is taking off 3 or 4 times a game for 20, 25 yards or so. So that classic, but what that shows me is that the kid may be under control and ready to handle the situations. Like I said, that opening game was against Minnesota. So, that was no easy task, no easy defense to face in your very first NFL game. And then the Ravens are tough too, at Baltimore. So what those stats are showing them, maybe this kid is just cool, calm, under control, and just gets the job done. Then we'll see how it progresses from there. But he is owned in our league. He is owned. I believe that's Malachi David that has him. So I don't know. I can't figure out this NFL season, guys. It's been really crazy. I don't know. If you had to ask for Super Bowl, I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it was crazy trying to figure out how the playoffs and Super Bowl is going to play out. Because right now, looking at both conferences in the AFC and NFC, I don't think there's anybody that you can feel comfortable about picking. You can't feel that comfortable about the picking the Patriots in the AFC, can't you? Can't you the way they kind of look?
That defense is hot garbage.
It's the worst defense that they have ever had in the Belichick-Brady era. It has to be. It has to be. I've never seen a defense. Josh McCown carved them up. He carved them up like a Thanksgiving turkey.
They've given up more yards.
Carved them up like a pumpkin.
Than anybody. They've given up like over 300 more yards than anybody else in the league. That's a whole game's worth.
Jermaine Kearse, there was one play, Jermaine Kearse was so wide open that there wasn't a guy maybe 20, 30 yards away from him, and McCown overthrew him. But the Patriots should have lost. Regardless of that, you had that call. the missed opportunities. McCown overthrew a few receivers that were literally wide open. I saw it, 3 or 4 times. New England is vulnerable. They're not this dynasty team that they've been in years past. I don't know who else could take the AFC outside of New England. I think it's that New England is going to be in the AFC Championship, let alone the Super Bowl at this point.
You froze up on my end, Ryan. So who are you going to say there? I'm curious.
As far as like my AFC,
who else could be it outside Patriots?
I mean, I know Big Ben has played really bad. I think it's better that he has played bad now. Obviously, there's still a lot of seasons. There's still a lot of
they've done that a lot too. The Steelers have been in that situation several years too.
Yeah,
play mediocre and then make the playoffs and then look out.
The running game, obviously, they have Le'Veon Bell, but James Conner is
and Antonio Brown. How about that catch last week, guys?
Yeah,
oh my Lord,
that was ridiculous. And their defense is average. They're not great. They're not like the Steel Curtain, obviously, but they're all right. I would say the Steelers, and another team that just hasn't gotten it together yet is the Raiders. They were like a big pick for everybody, an interesting, intriguing option.
If Derek Carr is not going to be okay this season, then I'm not sure.
Then he's not. Yeah,
I mean, they're 2-4 right now. They're already in a hole, really, in a tough division.
Yeah, in a very tough division.
So you didn't mention Kansas City. Not a believer in Kansas City?
Oh, I did. That was the team that I was gonna. That was the team I was gonna allude to the Pittsburgh Kansas City matchup, being that was a good game. I think that could be the AFC Championship.
Yeah, not out of the realm of possibility. Orlando, what were you gonna say?
No, same thing. It's still early, but Kansas City would be my choice right now. I mean, obviously the Patriots could turn it around. We've seen them just. Brady. As long as they have a healthy Brady, we've seen them turn it around. So, but early dark horse right now, I'm gonna have to stick with the Chiefs as well.
Yep. You guys didn't mention the NFC though. DDT, real quick. Do you say the Chiefs in the AFC right now? Who's it looking like? Who would you say is going to be there at the end?
AFC. I mean, the Chiefs.
Can't say the Jets. Can't say the Jets.
I'm not going to say the Chiefs.
Or you can't say the Jets.
The Bills.
Actually, and you know what? I can't believe I'm saying this. The Bills are one of the most dangerous teams in the AFC right now, and I honestly think if they get their stuff together, I might pay a little bit more attention to Buffalo this year. And
who's going to catch the ball
next year?
Well, you're running out of time. They may have done what they're going to do already.
Listen, they dumped their team. Listen to this. They dumped their team. And with this ragtag bunch of hooligans, while Gary Sanchez just hit a home run into the stands, 5-0 Yankees.
It's over.
Bottom of the 7th.
God.
I think Buffalo can really make moves, not only this year, but next year. They have stockpiled a good plan. I would say that Buffalo is a sleeper team, but the Kansas City Chiefs are definitely the.
So let me ask you this. Okay. All right. So
I gotta chime in.
Okay. Hang on. Okay. I'll let you wrap it up. But something I keep asking you guys, I've asked Ryan repeatedly, Dan repeatedly too, but I want to know Dylan's take on this is what do you think of Tyrod Taylor? Your honest assessment.
My honest assessment of Tyrod Taylor, he is a backup quarterback that is being put into a system that he can be successful in. He's moved up slowly. I don't think he can be the starter long term. I think the Bills can look elsewhere for a good quarterback. Kirk Cousins is going to be available, and I think that's the guy they should go after. Because if you throw a gunslinger like him on that team, and you give him the right receivers and the right people to check down to, and keep LaShawn McCoy running for him, maybe with another running back behind him, I think the Bills can really throw something together. But it's got to be done correctly. They can't just throw out names in there and just think it's going to work. They need to get people that can work for Kirk, because that's their quarterback target. No one can sit here and say that Tyrod Taylor is going to be the starter going for it. He's just not. He's a backup quarterback, and that's simple as that.
I think Ryan. I think Ryan would agree, and then you go ahead, Ryan. What were you going to say?
So you said something, Dylan, a moment ago about them trading their team away. I am here to tell everybody that is watching this, that is on this show, that when the Bills traded Sammy Watkins away, it was probably the best move that they have made in the last 5 years. Because the moment they traded him, they realized that there were players on the team that had to step up on both offense and defense, and they've done so far. Plus, I've heard things about Sammy Watkins being a diva. They brought in a guy like Anquan Bolden to try and kind of calm him down, and that didn't work, obviously. So when that didn't happen, I should say, Sammy Watkins was basically expendable. Plus, he was never healthy. He couldn't stay healthy. The guy just couldn't get out of his own way. So trading him for a second-round pick when they had given up 2 first-round picks to get him, I wasn't obviously thrilled with that, but I realized they might as well get something for him now because I don't even think Sammy Watkins is going to be a Ram next year, let alone I don't think he would have been a Bill. I don't think he would have re-signed with the Bills. I don't think he'll re-sign with the Rams either.
Let me ask you this. If I was hearing DDT correctly, were you saying, DDT, that the Bills should target Kirk Cousins?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I think that'd be very intriguing. Okay, I think that'd be very intriguing.
I mean, he wants out of Washington so bad. You can see it. He's
getting paid a gazillion dollars to stay there and just be the guy.
And guess what he's doing? He's not doing what Ryan Fitzpatrick did when he got paid. When Ryan Fitzpatrick got paid, he sat. When he was playing with the Bills and the Jets, both times he got paid. And
Kirk Cousins is a lot better than Ryan Fitzpatrick.
I was about to say, how do we talk about Ryan Fitzpatrick?
So you would be Ryan, you would be okay with that as a Bills fan? Would that be your target?
I would be okay with it, but I don't see them. I see them going with their own franchise quarterback that they haven't had since Jim Kelly retired in 1997.
He's not a franchise quarterback, Brian.
Who? Kirk Cousins?
Not a franchise quarterback.
Kirk Cousins.
I thought you were talking about Tyrod Taylor. I was about to say.
No, not at all. Yeah, I don't want. I thought Tyrod should have got cut last year. He's reached his limitations. They know his ceiling. They know his floor. They know his strengths. They know his weaknesses. But I just don't see the Bills shelling out that type of money for a quarterback. I see them with the multitude of draft picks that they have, drafting someone, crafting him as their franchise quarterback. They've tried to do that, but
then have fun going 5-11.
Well, I mean, I think that's probably what you're talking about. Kirk Cousins is a pipe dream for a lot of teams. I can name a lot of teams. Your Jets would be one of them, probably.
Yeah.
I see Kirk Cousins in San Francisco next year, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Orlando's mentioned that before.
What's in San Francisco besides Carlos Hyde? That's
all. Orlando, you have mentioned that before a couple of weeks ago. Why did you say that?
I just think it was the pretty good fit. Depending Garcon's still there. I mean the coaching staff that he was used in the coaching, and just a fresh start. He just wants out of Washington. It's just not working out for whatever reasons. I mean, you look at it now. They gave away in an offseason, traded away a lot of pieces or got rid of a lot of pieces. You bring in Pryor, Crowder's still not getting it together. Pryor's not getting it together. I think their leading receivers, Chris Thompson, and then behind that is Vernon Davis, which is ridiculous. Those are the Washington 2 leading receivers. So it's just not working out in Washington the way they expect it to be. And they've been in a lot of close games. They barely beat San Francisco. I just don't think Cousins wants to be there, and I don't think he's a Redskin next season.
Can I chime in too just to make one final? Buffalo is a very tough place to play, and I'm not saying it for obvious reasons.
I've seen those YouTube videos. Those fans are crazy.
Not even just because the fans, the media in Buffalo, particularly with the Buffalo News, this is a fan base that hasn't seen a playoff stint in 17 years. They'll try to get it. Let's just say they got Kirk Cousins, he would be put in a blender and fried and want to be out of here just as much as he wants to be out of Washington. And I'm saying that as a Bills fan. They need someone fresh. They need a rookie, a young quarterback that
doesn't know any better.
Yes, exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Do you remember how that last playoff stint ended for you?
Today was
Frank
Wycheck.
That is uncalled.
Today was
rude. That was so rude.
I think it was like the 20th anniversary of the first Bills game I went to, where Doug Flutie did a bootleg against Jacksonville when Jacksonville was like really good. They had Tom Coughlin and Mark Brunell and all the. He did a bootleg quarterback run, and that put the Bills in the playoffs. And that was the no words. I can't even. Don't let me go there.
We're going to get off that subject.
Yeah, we'll end it. Yeah, let's end it. I remember Frank Wycheck in the snow. That's NFL talk. Around it.
That was a forward pass.
Oh, my God. That was me.
We're going to get into your fantasy mailbag questions next. This is what you guys been hanging around here for all podcasts, is to get those fantasy mailbag questions answered. So thanks for submitting them. We'll get into them next. You're listening to and watching My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. Brandon Reed, Dan, I'm sorry you missed this fun. I'm sorry that your Astros are getting beat pretty bad right now. If you're watching, I've lost total control of this thing. We got DDT, Dylan Davis-Strado, Ryan Thomas taken here, and Orlando Torres. See, I'm all confused. It's chaos on the podcast.
Wait a minute.
It's like when the cat's away, the mice will play. Yep, what up?
Oh, and bam. Yeah.
Okay.
Here, I'm gonna zoom in on that. Look at that. That's gonna be in the World Series. Okay, I'm done.
Wow. That just happened, man. Live on the podcast. It's a takeover. I feel bad. I'm the only one not repping my team. Orlando, what you got on? You got like a Michigan shirt on? What is that?
Oh, I gotta be repping my boys at all times.
Cowboys.
I got the star.
Sorry.
Them boys.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not repping a team here, guys. I didn't get the memo. But so we got a lot of mailbag questions to get into, though, from you guys that submitted all the questions for the last week. We appreciate it. These have come into us, and we'll get to as many as we can. And like I said, I encourage you guys to keep the fantasy NBA questions coming, too. So a couple of these are of the NBA variety. But we're going to start out talking NFL from you guys who want to know. First one comes from Ted Allen. And this gets back to Aaron Rodgers. Is Green Bay's season done with Rodgers out? McCarthy seems to believe in Hundley. Do you guys? We'll start with Orlando. Do you believe in Brett Hundley to take this thing through on a 4-2 Packers team?
I don't know if he takes it through. But looking at the division, the Vikings had quarterback problems of themselves, and Hundley's been in the system for 3 years. He's pretty mobile. He's a pretty good athlete, and if you think about it, he has a great support cast. You got Nelson, you got Adams, you got Cobb. We've seen
except for that run game, like I mentioned before.
Yeah, no, except for that run game, but
ranked 26.
I think
they're ranked 26 in the league in running, and that's not going to help a young quarterback out.
It's not going to help a young quarterback out, but looking at their schedule, they got I know they got the Saints coming up, and the Saints defense has been looking pretty good. Then they got a bye, and then they come back, and I think they got Detroit. And I know Pittsburgh's down the line. Some tough games, but I don't think they're going to just completely tank it. I think Hundley's a good enough, viable quarterback to at least get them to a couple wins. Then, there's probably a chance that they make the wild card. I'm not going to go that far and say they will, but I'm not going to go and say that they're completely out of it. I don't think that. I think McCarthy's still a good coach. He has a great supporting cast. And I don't know. I do believe in Hundley. I'm not going to say he's going to take them to the playoffs all the way, but I think he's good enough to still make the Packers have a great, successful season.
Right. They got off to a good start, 4-2 in that division. DDT, what do you think?
Like I mentioned earlier, I think Hundley's on a week-to-week basis. Right now, this is a time for McCarthy to pretty much hit the panic button. You have lost your team in one play with one shoulder. The running game is not strong enough to hold up. The passing game is not strong enough to hold up. The receiving core, the defense. I just don't see the Packers making any moves. As I said before, they may get maybe 3 or 4 more wins at best, but their season is over.
Well, let me ask you this.
Their season's done.
Because for the Packers, I get your point, but you just have to win the division. Who would you see winning that division outside the Packers? The Bears aren't going to win that division, even with Trubisky. I don't know how you feel about the Lions.
I mean, honestly, I thought the Lions were going to win the division. I'm really high on the Lions. I don't know why I have been. Past couple of seasons, I've been so high on Detroit. But under the current state of just how I'm seeing things play out, I think Minnesota has their handle on this. I don't see them getting that outrageous record of like 12-4, but I do see them going to a 9-7, 10-6, maybe 11-5, and maybe getting a first round bye, but most likely wild card. But I'd see the Packers finishing second, third, honestly third. I think Detroit finishes ahead of them. I don't think Chicago can catch them.
So this brings up a good point. So while y'all are talking about it, let me review the remaining Green Bay Packers schedule. Okay. Next up is New Orleans. They'll be home against New Orleans, home against Detroit, who DDT was talking about. They go at Chicago. They are going to be hosting Baltimore. They are going to be at Pittsburgh, hosting Tampa Bay. Then they're going to finish out the season very hard, not necessarily hard with this first game, but 3 of their last 4 are on the road. Go at Cleveland, at Carolina, home against Minnesota, and then at Detroit again to finish out the black and blue division and finish out the season. So DDT may be on to something there. If Brett Hundley is not the guy, that is not a lot of easy games on your schedule left.
That's a lot harder actually than I anticipated, but there are some teams in there that are appetizing to say there's a win, but that's like saying, like, oh, yeah, they're going to blow it away. It can come down to one play.
And I don't trust that team without Aaron Rodgers, to be honest with you.
No. Oh, Brett Favre, I think he wants a job again, so you might see him throw that number 4 back on.
Yeah, I mixed up Brett Hundley. How ironic.
They're going to sign Brett Favre before they sign
Tony Romo. Tony Romo.
No, he's one of the greatest broadcasters ever. Please leave him in the booth.
What if Brett Hundley turns out to be the next greatest thing and Aaron Rodgers are looking for a job?
He could be the next Dak Prescott. You never know.
From Brett to Aaron to Brett. I don't know, but DDT has a point there. That schedule is tough.
Yeah. The best scenario you could have is what the Jets had a couple years ago with Geno Smith and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Geno Smith goes out because of a broken jaw from IK Poly, and Ryan Fitzpatrick steps in and has a 10-6 season where, unfortunately, the Jets didn't make the playoffs, but still,
my Bills
it was
beat
an
him.
absolute. Yeah, no, Ryan Fitzpatrick choked. You didn't beat us. He choked.
He always chokes.
We're not going to talk about that.
Okay. But it goes back to the point that you're making earlier. Even Ryan Fitzpatrick, you put him in an offense with some good weapons and supporting. He had Brandon Marshall. Brandon Marshall had a terrific season that year. They had a pretty good run game. They had Forte, Bilal Powell there. You look at the Packers. Hundley has a great supporting cast. So, as long as you get a good quarterback, you get it to his playmakers. I don't see how the Packers should.
But the thing is, though, and just to counter, that supporting cast had Aaron Rodgers for years. They're dealing with Aaron Hundley for now the first time, really. They've only had.
Well, he's been there 3 years, though. He's been there 3 years.
But only like preseason.
Not under game action.
He's never been a regular season quarterback.
He probably hasn't worked with the ones much.
He's worked with the third stringers in the practice squad.
It may be all more mental makeup for Brett Hundley now, like we were talking about with Mitchell Trubisky. Does he have it? Does he have the common cool? Or is he going to freak out in this situation?
I can't wait till week 16 when we're talking about this again. You're going to be like, damn, Orlando, you're right.
Okay, well, Orlando, I just did the math in my head, and this is something for you guys. If you want to do the math, if you will look at Green Bay's remaining schedule, if you don't have time, that's cool. But if you got it pulled up, do it in your head. I did it in my head, Orlando. I just counted out the remaining games for Green Bay. The way I see it without Aaron Rodgers, they go 2-8 the rest of the schedule.
Wow, he did less than I did.
Wow.
And I'm being nice, and I was being nice.
I think they could go 7-9 or 8-8 at most.
I can say they get to 8 games. I can see that.
Yeah, I don't think they'll make the playoffs, though.
So what I'm saying is loss versus New Orleans, loss versus Detroit, win versus Chicago, loss versus Baltimore, loss versus Pittsburgh, loss versus Tampa Bay, win versus Cleveland, loss, Carolina, loss, Minnesota, loss, Detroit. They could beat Tampa Bay. They might sneak up on Baltimore.
Well, I'll say they lose to the Saints. I'm going to say they beat the Lions. They beat the Bears. I'm going to say they beat the Ravens. Have you seen Joe Flacco lately? I mean, besides that defense, and they got carved up by Jordan Howard for 167 yards at home.
It is
Ty
in
Montgomery
Baltimore.
who's the other running back?
I'm going to say they lose to
They
Pittsburgh.
host both Baltimore and Tampa Bay, so those are questionable flips on my part.
questionable. They lose to Carolina, but I could see them beating Detroit. I could see they're going to beat the Bears. I could see that's 3 wins right there.
They're at Cleveland, at Carolina, at Detroit. They do
Cleveland's a mess. I'll take Hunley with the Green Bay Packers beating them there. I'm just saying. I can see them getting 8-9 wins.
Very interesting. Ryan, you got anything else left on that Green Bay situation?
There's just no replacing Aaron Rodgers. It's just
Elite
that simple. He's the elite of the elite. And anytime you lose a guy like that, it changes the whole dynamic of your team. I do feel
it would be. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I feel for Brett Hundley. I do think he's a decent backup quarterback. I think he's got intangibles that most quarterbacks don't have. But I just don't see them. I see them going 7-9 or 8-8 at best.
It would be different if we knew Aaron Rodgers had a possibility of coming back, and we don't know that yet. His surgery hasn't even been scheduled, which scares me because we're pushing this thing back even further. It's his throwing shoulder. He had the same injury before, but it was the left-hand side. Now it's his throwing shoulder, which means recovery time is going to be a little bit longer. So I don't see him coming back this year.
I don't think he comes back. I watched Tony Romo for a long time. It's hard.
I don't think Rodgers will come back. I do think the Packers should sign somebody else.
It's different. I was thinking and reading about a scenario today earlier when I just brought up with Ryan Thomas is that year that Tennessee Titans made the Super Bowl. That was a year that Steve McNair actually got hurt. Neil O'Donnell came in and led them to a 4-1 record. So Steve McNair was out 5 games, came back, led them to a Super Bowl. But we're not talking about the same situation here. Aaron Rodgers is most likely not going to get back under center this year.
And Neil O'Donnell was a guy that played in a Super Bowl with the Steelers, so he had some cred to his
moxie.
name. He wasn't
he had
great,
a little moxie to him.
He had some cred to his name.
Yep.
Sure.
And Matt Hasselbeck kind of came in and did the same thing recently in Tennessee. So if you have a veteran guy, or someone just to even get you over a 4, 5, 6 game hump, then okay. But for the rest of the season, I think it's going to fall apart on them. I think it's going to fall apart on the Cheeseheads. Hate to say it, Ted Allen, but I'm kind of agreeing that it's done. Let's move on. Next question comes from Chris Lawless. AP is back and should be considered a running back number 1 moving forward. Agree or not? Let's go to Ryan. You got him. I guess the answer is obvious.
I wouldn't speak so fast. I don't think he's a running back 1.
So who do you have? You started him last week, so who is on your bench? Who do you have as your running back core?
I mean, talking about a guy as a running back 1 is putting him in the same company as like Zeke or Le'Veon Bell
But he started 1 game this year and definitely put up running back 1.
Melvin Gordon.
Or Melvin Gordon, yeah, for sure. Or Leonard Fournette, who I also have.
Gurley.
Todd Gurley, Hunt. But I'm not. I'm definitely – I loved the performance that he put on. It was a great debut, but I'm not ready to say that he's, going to be a running back 1 the rest of the season.
How do you feel about it? Since he is on your team, how do you feel about it? You're being cautious? Are you going to start him next week?
I'm going to start him. I'm starting him in my flex this week, being that Zeke is going to play. I'm starting Zeke. Amir Abdullah is on a bye. So I probably would have benched him anyway, but I'd have Zeke, Fournette, and then AP in my flex slot. So, I mean, he's going to get volume. He got a lot of carries. Andre Ellington got nothing.
I would have never guessed he would have got, 26 carries?
26 carries. Andre Ellington got nothing. I don't even think he had a point in fantasy.
That's what I'm. How bad is Kerwin Williams and Andre Ellington if you guys reach for an AP? Because I'm telling you, it was a reach. They didn't know this was coming.
Ellington's been pretty good, but he's more of a pass catching back. And I think just with AP going in there, he just took away his work. He's never been just a straight down the line type of runner. And Ellington's always been a great pass catching.
I didn't see this performance coming, man. I really didn't. So I need a little bit bigger sample size, though, before I would make that proclamation that he's a running back 1. I'll tell you, but it also depends on your team, because as far as if you're asking me, then like I said, told Ryan earlier, then AP last week got more points than all of my running back core did in the last 3 or 4 weeks. So for me, he would for sure be an RB1 until he's no longer playing. But we can't speak for everybody, so it just really depends on your situation, Chris Lawless. DDT, what do you think about AP? Fluke game, or is this something to keep an eye out for?
No, I think AP thrives when he is the featured back. I think also, in regards to being running back one, that is a very suspect position in fantasy. It always is every year. I'd see him in a current state as a flex, but with low-tier running back two potential. And then, I guess, to kind of go a little further down the line, we have to also remember David Johnson can be back. He could come back. If he doesn't,
small shot, but you're correct.
Small shot, but if David Johnson comes back, then immediately Arizona's going to immediately think, wait a minute.
Well, I think AP loses all value then.
All his value. But it does serve them, if you think of outside fantasy as a team perspective, going forward, Arizona could be a great running game for you.
They needed that because if you watched them, they were airing it out. They were airing it out. I actually like the Cowboys game.
You know who really needed it too was Carson Palmer. He needed a running game.
That's true. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Orlando can attest to that Cowboys game. I've watched several Cardinals games recently. It's actually kind of fun to watch them play because they are throwing it deep more than any team I've seen in a while, like on the New Orleans level when they were clicking at their highest. They're just throwing it a ton. And that's not what you need for what is Carson Palmer? He's at least
38,
34.
He's that old? Man, okay, I'm sorry.
He's surprisingly younger than Tom Brady.
He plays like he's 38.
I'm sorry. Great. Yeah, he's older than I thought.
Up until this past week, he wasn't. I really think the running game has. I mean, anytime you have AP playing like he did, I think that opened things up for Palmer much more than previous
potential
weeks.
Is there. We'll see what happens week to week basis.
Yeah, I'm not really sold on the running back one. Like I said, again, it depends on what you have. I'm very skeptical right now, but it depends. If your team doesn't have any running backs like mine, then I ought to be playing him probably for a while, just based on what he did last week. But good luck to you. Chris Lawless, I'm interested in that question. Are you trying to trade for him? I know he's not available in your league, but hey, salute to Ryan Thomas for hanging on to AP because I probably would not have.
Stick with the old guys.
Draft.
Stick with the old warhorse.
You are sticking with them. Tom Brady's already surpassed what I thought he'd do this year, but there's still time. My prediction may still come true. He is taking some shots, guys. And
he's taking a lot of shots.
And Orlando knows. I've said all from the get-go that my prediction is Tom Brady will not play 16 games, much less playoffs. I just think something will happen. It happens. Look at what happened to Aaron Rodgers. And Brady is taking a lot of shots. I don't care how good a shape you're in or what you eat and what kind of yogurt you buy. Stuff is going to happen to you.
Can I make one quick point from the next question? I understand Tom Brady is not everyone's cup of tea. But you do have to also understand, he is the greatest quarterback to ever play this game. And even as a Jets fan, I respect what that man can do with that football. Because I do see him carrying through all the way to the Super Bowl. That was my pick at the beginning of the year. It was a Falcons-Patriots rematch. I'm sticking by that. Do not underestimate Tom Brady, ever.
New England ain't making it, bro. It really ain't nothing to do with it.
Fear him like I do.
Tom Brady better start playing.
I think you're overestimating Atlanta too. I don't know about Atlanta.
I was with you there until probably 2 weeks ago. They started blowing these leads and losing to Miami was.
They lost to Buffalo too.
Yeah, but the Miami thing, Miami couldn't score touchdowns until they played the Falcons. Miami had like one touchdown all season.
I'm sticking by it. I'm going to stand by my picks until it's.
You're going down in flames, and I'm less worried about Atlanta.
I'm a Knicks fan. I always go down in flames. What's the point?
I'll take Green Bay over the current Falcons. So I'll say that. Atlanta's going to be busy blowing so many leads.
Green Bay over
Super Bowl. I'm saying that about New England. Their defense is such garbage. They have no chance of making it back to the Super Bowl. Plus, they always get Super Bowl hangovers. What they do, they don't go to back-to-back Super Bowls. They're not the Bills.
Yeah. Oh, geez. What is with these insults today?
That was an insult.
Red Sox
That was
hat.
not an insult. You made
Because
4 straight Super Bowls.
It's
Anybody else
because
would
you're
die to
wearing
make
the
4
Red
straight
Sox
The
hat.
Super
show
Bowls.
Take it
started
off.
on straight insults, going towards Dan from DDT.
This is just-
This is an insult show.
Last I checked, the Red Sox have won more World Series in this century than the Yankees have.
And last I checked, they're
So,
27.
there's
It's about
that.
to be 28.
You were only alive for 5 of them. So
Holla at you,
what
boy.
does
Holla
that
at you.
matter?
Don't make me put the hat back on. I will put the hat back on.
I'm leaving
Dan-
my hat on. You took yours off.
Dan, I need help.
I took mine
I've
off out of
lost-
respect. Out of respect.
I'm leaving mine on out of respect.
No, you're
All
not.
right,
I've lost
next
control.
next question. Next question.
I've lost complete control.
Okay, we've lost control. This is bad.
So
This is like a
this is
one-time
right
deal.
back. We'll move on. Thanks, Chris Lawless, for starting this whole mess, which you just did. We're gonna move on. Next question.
It all
comes
started
from-
with your Bills insults. Leave my Bills alone.
Sorry.
Leave
I
them
didn't
alone.
say anything. I was very polite.
No, it was Brandon. I heard.
Justin Spears, shut up.
Dan is gonna
That's what
die.
Dan
from
done.
this.
Dan was here. Justin Shearer wants to know Alfredo Morris or Darren McFadden if Zeke goes down with that Goodell suspension. So I'll get mine out of the way, then let these guys go. I would say a run DMC if I thought that Zeke was going to miss any time at all. I think Dan was right from the get-go. I don't think Zeke is going to miss any suspension. This is a crazy, twisted court case now, so you know how that works. I don't think any missed time is going to go off the record of Zeke as far as missing NFL games this year. I don't think he's going to miss any games. So let's go to Ryan Thomas. So I would have normally said DMC, run DMC, but he hadn't got a touch this year. At least Alfred Morris is getting 3 or 4 touches, or at least involved in the play calling scheme. But I don't think you're gonna have to worry about it. Ryan, what do you think? You're the man with the guy all in the center.
This is the dumbest, weirdest situation that I have ever been a part of as a fantasy football player, as a host, as a sports writer. When is this gonna end? Like, it's just up. He's gonna be suspended. Up. No,
you
he's
watched
not.
you watched the Brady scenario, right?
It's I mean,
Oh,
that's the
God.
closest thing to it. And as far as who to have, Darren McFadden or Alfred Morris, I was shocked that I was able to pick up both of them in my league. My league is a 10-team. It's not a 14-team league like ours, but I still have Alfredo Morris and Darren McFadden on my bench, even though Zeke is going to play at least week 7 and week 8.
If you had to cut one of them,
If I had to cut one of them, I would probably cut Morris, to be honest, because Darren McFadden was a healthy scratch, and I think he was a healthy scratch for a reason. I think that they were saving Darren McFadden in the event that something like this happened. He would be fresh. He wouldn't, have taken any hits. Maybe I'm reading into it a little bit too much, but I've never seen somebody be a healthy scratch for the first 5 weeks of the season. If it wasn't in this situation, I don't think he would have been.
but what does
You know
that
what I
tell you? He's not even getting looks, or they're not even interested enough. Now, do you think it may be going back to trying to keep him healthy in case
Trying to keep him healthy because he's been one of the more injury-prone running backs
he
in
has,
his career.
and they don't know what's happening. That suspension is still looming over the heads of everybody. So you think that's
Yep,
the mindset? Let me ask Orlando. You think that's the mindset, Orlando?
I'm not. Yeah, it's going back to your point. It's been confusing because we haven't seen him in any snaps, and we've seen Alfred Morris. So I'm the same way. To go back to the question, I think you got to own both of the guys. It's ridiculous. That, as a fan, being a homer as a fan, sometimes I feel like Zeke is in a way hurting the team with this because I don't want him to be suspended. I hope this gets settled outside of once the season is over. But he keeps getting these temporary reinstatements that allow him to play each week. Okay, well, what happens if they drop the hammer? He gets suspended week 11 or week 10. Well, then what good does us? When the Cowboys are trying to make a playoff push, that doesn't really do it any good. You got Darren McFadden. You sit out Darren McFadden for that long without taking any snaps. What good does that do Darren McFadden or Alfred Morris? So I think to be smart for the Cowboys, even with Zeke playing, you still got to mix in these guys a bit, and that's confusing. I know that's not what we want to hear. That's not what I want to see. But in case something were to happen, I think you got to get some carries to McFadden. You got to get him ready. You got to get some carries to McMorris because honestly, I don't know when he's going to get suspended or what's going to happen. This case is just it's crazy. It's all over the place, and it could happen any week. Sometimes I feel like again, like I just just accept the punishment. He would just accept it, come back. Serve the suspension, come back. I respect him for fighting it, but again, if he gets suspended week 12, 11, 10, it's just hurting the team. Long term.
So, okay, bigger picture, and I'm not going to sidetrack us here. I'll let DDT answer this fantasy question as well. But as just in the NFL in general, since we didn't really hit on this, and as a Cowboys fan wearing Cowboy gear right now, Orlando, how do you feel about your team right now, man? It ain't going great. You're 2-3.
I won't go too much sidetracked either, but I will put a little bit on the defense, but I'm going to say what I've been telling a lot of my friends and family. It is on Jason Garrett. And I hate, I know it sounds crazy. I know the defense is beginning up a lot of big leads. We got gashed by Anderson. We got gashed by Todd Gurley for over 200 yards. But this goes to my point, to just make it short and sweet. To say everybody trashed Romo when we had Romo. Everybody trashed that man. And just like that, I'm a big Romo supporter. I've seen that man put the team on his back several times. I know he's had his blunders. He saw those late picks. But how many times have you seen Romo with the Cowboys build double-digit leads and in the second half they just crumble? Or when the game's on the line, the last drive of the game, he throws a pick, and the fault doesn't go on the defense. The fault goes on Romo because he couldn't finish it. Well, you know what? We got new players. We got Zeke. We got Dak Prescott, which are pretty damn good players. And it's the same thing. The Cowboys can't finish. So Romo's out. A lot of these old guys are out. You got new faces, and it's the same problems.
Is it defense though? Honestly, I mean, didn't it come back to the defense? Is Sean Lee?
It comes back to the
I've
defense.
seen that year after year. When Sean Lee goes down, and it seems like that defense collapses.
It does collapse, but you know what? I'm going to put a lot of the pressure on the coaching too because it's just the same problem, just lingering and lingering and lingering.
How long has Garrett been coach now?
He's been there since 2010. So it's a
bit
frustrating.
About 8 years, yeah.
About 8 years. And
so is that the rumblings of Cowboys fans that maybe we need to start looking at a new coach? I mean, 8 years is enough time. A lot of probably better coaches have got a lot less time to fix things than that.
Yeah, and you even see some of the players. I follow a lot of players on Twitter. You'll see a lot of players kind of throw shade like, coaching should have made, adjustments or you can't put that on defense. And, that tells – I see it. Seeing from Romo, just him getting shredded by the media and fans, and it's the same thing with Dak. I'm going to put pressure on Jason Garrett now. I'm not going to put it fully on the defense.
There you go. So it may be getting time. Hot seat time. DDT, real quick, what do you think about this scenario? If you had Zeke or thought Zeke was going down, who would you rather want to own, Alfred Morris or Darren McFadden?
I would like to own the Yankees as they just beat the Astros 5-0. We're up 3-2 in the series. Booyah! Okay, now I'm getting back to it. So,
put the hat on. Put the hat on.
I won't. I'm trying to be professional.
He's not going to put it on.
I'm trying to be professional, and I know I want to answer this question
because they didn't clinch the series yet. That's why you ain't putting it on.
Don't start with me. I will. I'm trying really hard to be nice. Don't make me be mean. Don't make me be mean.
Brandon, you got to be the adult here.
Do you remember the question?
I do remember the question. I'm trying to get into it, but Ryan's trying to sidetrack me. I'm not going to let that happen because I have a great point to make. In regards to Ezekiel Elliott, right now, if we're talking about Alfred Morris and Darren McFadden, because that's the subject of the question, they're holding on to Darren McFadden, yes, to make sure that they have a running back available in case Zeke can't play. But I want to see Alfred Morris and Darren McFadden in the case that Ezekiel Elliott does get suspended, run with a 1-2 punch because I think they could be very dynamic. It could help the Cowboys. But because Zeke is the center focus and he's fighting the case, it's a benefit to him to play. But the Cowboys season is not turning out the way I expected it. And I don't really know if fighting the suspension, as much as it holds merit for Elliott, is going to help them going forward. Because if he keeps fighting this, he's going to have to serve the suspension next year. And
I see where you're going.
You're not going to have him. If you keep fighting it this year, you're not going to have him next year, which means you have to now go out in free agency and the draft and sign and draft players to replace Ezekiel Elliott, thereby taking away your efforts to improve your defense, which is in great need of help, and honestly, your receiving core could use another boost because Dez Bryant's not getting any younger. I don't know how long they can hang on with Beasley. Terrence Williams, I don't see this being a benefit if Ezekiel Elliott keeps fighting this. If you can fight this outside of the NFL.
I hear you, but did you say Alfred Morris or Darren McFadden?
I'm going to say Darren McFadden because they're not using him. But
that's what I think, yeah.
But the thing is also, I'm kind of thinking of this in another perspective where if Ezekiel Elliott doesn't play, it's a 1-2 punch of running backs you have. And I guess in the end, I just think McFadden at this point, because Zeke's going to play, he's going to play the rest of the season. He's just going to keep fighting it. Alfred Morris is the younger, more durable-ish back that can carry this team as far as it can go.
I'm not sure we answered the question very thoroughly for you, Justin. It's a hard buzz, but I think I think we're all kind of agreeing. I think we all can kind of agree right here that I don't really look for Zeke to miss any time. I'm not really worried about it. I'm not rushing out or making any drastic moves to get Alfred Morris or Darren McFadden in the thought that Zeke is going to miss significant time this year. I just don't think it's going to happen.
That's the answer to your question, then. That's the answer to the question. Elliott's going to play. Don't worry about Morris.
I really think so. So, appreciate the question, Justin. Let's move on. Next one comes from Fred Heyer. Interested in your thoughts on this trade. I give up Larry Fitzgerald and Alvin Kamara for Keenan Allen and the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. I currently stream defenses every week and suck at doing it. So that's what Fred hires. Honestly, this is interesting, Fred, because I usually have that strategy too in a lot of – because I'm not really interested in drafting defenses. A lot of the defenses, there's only 2 or 3 really top defenses every year that you really want to snag and are really game changers each and every year. And a lot of times they're snagged in the 6th or 7th round, and I'm not interested in that. So if I miss them, then I'm usually in the situation you are. Pick up what I think is a pretty decent defense late, and then I usually just end up playing switch them each week, get the best defense available on the waiver wire that I can that I think has the best matchup. That's the way I usually play it. But this year I drafted the Jacksonville Jaguars defense in hopes that they would be really good, and they have been really good other than one bad Tennessee game. They're averaging right at 15 points for me in our fantasy league. That being said, I really kind of like your combination of Larry Fitzgerald just because, well, I like it a lot more until Adrian Peterson arrived in Arizona. But they throw a lot. So I like your Larry Fitz. And Alvin Kamara is coming on as a backup quarterback, running back. He is averaging more than most of my running backs on my team. So I really like that combination. I'm not sure I would give up those 2 guys for Keenan Allen, who may or may not stay healthy, he's doing great, and the Jacksonville defense, unless you really have a fairly stacked team and need that defense. It's up to you, man. Love Jacksonville defense, but what I'm saying is I probably wouldn't give up those 2 money players in Fitzgerald and Kamara each and every week. That really could be a good punch for you, or at least add depth to your bench each and every week through the flex spot. I don't know. It's risky. It's a tough trade for me, though, to really say. We'll see. Ryan, what do you think on this trade?
I agree with virtually everything you said. I really like Alvin Kamara. He's definitely stepped in that role, and as I said earlier, he kind of ran AP out of town. But one thing about Kamara that does concern me is that Mark Ingram had a heck of a week. So I don't know if
he has been. They both do. It's crazy.
I don't know how long are they going to ride the hot hand, or are they going to go with both? But I still wouldn't trade 2 position players for a position player in a defense. Even if that defense has been good, I couldn't do it. So I would say no to the trade. I would keep Fitz, keep Kamara, and just keep streaming.
Orlando, what do you think on this?
You'll eventually do it right at some point.
It's not a bad trade.
Wade.
Yep.
Yeah, and I agree with the both of you. I'll stick it out with Fitz. You're keeping a wide receiver 1, and Kamara was a pretty good running back, especially in PPR leagues. So I'll stick with what I got instead of Keenan Allen. Will be a pretty good pickup, but I'll just continue streaming defenses.
I think Orlando has a bone to pick with Keenan Allen from last year. I think he's off that train. He's been bit by that before. But DDT, what do you think on this particular trade? Which way are you going?
Absolutely not. You hang on to those two players. You write them out as hard as you can. As much as I understand you want to pick up a solid defense, this year has been very different for me in fantasy football. I held on to Larry Fitzgerald. I traded Des Bryant early in the season for Jay Ajayi, and it was one of the worst trades I could have ever have done. And I knew that was my first mistake. And I've been trying like crazy to make trades because I just don't want to run up the acquisition limit. I'm assuming he doesn't have that issue with the defenses that he keeps picking up. So I think
he says he sucks at it.
I understand you suck at it. Defenses are very hard to gauge because you have to think about more stats than just how many interceptions they get, how many forced fumbles they have. You have to think about how many yards does an offense that they're facing allow against them usually. What's their average during the year? And if you build on that points, you do that math, it's more viable to keep Larry Fitzgerald and Kamara because their point output offensively against any defense is more valuable than what a defense can do against them. So I think keep Fitzgerald and Kamara.
There we go. We all agree on that, Fred, is what we're saying is not sure we'd give up those two pretty good position players for that defense. Just keep tagging away, keep doing what you're doing. Would be the safer play anyway, based on especially what Alvin Kamara is doing. I had to look at his stats and look at, oh, damn, this dude's outperforming my starters. He's a backup. So I like what they got going on there with Alvin Kamara in the future, and I like Larry Fitzgerald. So we're all saying that's unanimous. That's a 4-0 sweep. Keep Fitz and Kamara, Fred. All right, so moving on, I want to give a shout-out real quick to Tony Capelli. We're running out of time, but he wants to know, his question was, Gordon Hayward done for life? For life after that that injury. So we had to talk about that, and we talked about Gordon Hayward, so I want to keep this really, really quick, guys. I just wanted to give a shout-out to Tony Capelli, but what do you think his prognosis is real quick? DDT, will he be back next year and this will all be just a bad memory like Paul George? Or is this something that is going to hamper him and he may not ever be right again?
It's the injuries again, a fractured ankle. I don't left or right. It was the left. And a broken leg. Paul George came back from it, so can Gordon Hayward. I see him back next year. I think this is just going to be a bleep. We'll just put an asterisk on this season. He'll try again next year. Watch out for that back screen play.
Orlando, he probably won't be doing that next year. Orlando, what do you think? How does this really affect Hayward and the Celtics long term?
Yeah, I think he can come back from it. I think this season it does bump number one again. I think they're going to expect a lot from Kyrie. But ultimately, earlier they gave an update that they could expect them probably back, not on the court, but doing some physical stuff around March or April. That seems about right. And to take a positive out of such a negative that happened, out of a group, is that it happened right in the beginning of the season. So right when next season starts, he's going to get that full year to do his recovery, to do the workout, to regain the strength and all that. So, that's a positive. I look at it from the, the gruesome injury. It didn't happen in January, February, April, where you would think, okay, he's going to probably miss a season opener, probably some opening weeks.
And so that's rattled going into the playoffs or something like that and freak out, and it may be too late to make a move here or there to even recompensate for that. So I agree with you there. Julius Randle, like I said before, happened to him. He bounced back. Doing pretty good for the Lakers. That's sad and unfortunate, but I think we all agree that he'll be back, Tony. It's going to be a year, and it sucks for Boston fans. Sorry, Colby Gatz, but it's going to be a while, I think. We'll see what happens, see how they step up with it. Now, as far as last night's game, I'll tell you that they did make a run. They kept it close. It went down to the end. Kyrie missed a shot over LeBron to actually win the game, which would have been nuts. But let me tell you something that I think Cleveland lost a little bit of steam when Gordon went down, too. All those players were shook up, and it just took the steam and gas straight out of the game for both teams. So it stayed competitive, but I think Boston's going to eventually suffer a little bit because of this and slip in those standings early on at least. Last question. Kevin Wagner wants to know, those Dubs look suspect on defense last night. Super early overreaction. Are they vulnerable this year? I'll start out this one. Only thing I got to say about that is late in the game, I know Draymond Green went out, and that is their player of the year, reigning defensive player of the year. So that had a little something to do with that. Overreaction because Golden State lost the first game of the year last year too, and still won the championship by a mile. Not worried about this at all. Golden State's still going to be your champion unless somebody really goes down. It's going to take Steph Curry or Kevin Durant going down for the season for me to say that Golden State's not going to win the championship. And that's it. Nothing else. Let's go to DDT. Man, what do you think? Overreaction?
I watched the game in full last night. I love the run that they went on in the first quarter. But what happened was, I think the breakdown defensively was where they could not match when Harden decided to just go off. But not only could he control the game offensively, but defensively. They've put all their focus on him, leaving assists available for Chris Paul. Trevor Ariza could get points. Clint Capella could get rebounds. I think the Warriors had an issue of containing one player and then exposing the fact they couldn't find all the others. So I think as the season goes along, I think the Warriors will get it together. I think losing Draymond Green was a big hit, but I think they'll be just fine. They have a team that can win a championship, and they're formidable. They're not my pick to win this year. I think, and I don't know why you guys don't think so, I think the Thunder are going to walk the line with this year. I think they're going to make it.
Yeah, Orlando. Here he goes. Orlando.
And listen, we don't
cut his mic off. Cut the mic off. Nah.
He needs to have it cut off. I'm giving your.
I'm just.
We'll talk about this when I come back on the podcast again. We'll talk about this later.
They have to go through. Okay.
I know what they have to go through. If you would give me a chance to explain why I think they're going to win a title,
okay, we bashed you. Fair
Ryan.
enough. We bashed you bad on the podcast, so you get your chance. Please explain it.
That's fine. Okay, I will explain. This is why I think it's not the names that jump out at me. It's how they could use these names. It's how they can use this team. Because this is a one-time deal. Paul George is not staying in OKC. Neither is Melo. Russell Westbrook is staying because he wants to spite Durant every chance he can get. So, if you know what you have in this team, you know what your lineup's going to be. It's going to be Westbrook, Paul George, Steven Adams, and then...
Cut his mic off. Good timing. Good timing.
Sorry. Hold on. I'm sorry. I had a phone call.
And then...
Come on. Oh, man, airplane mode, something. Do not disturb.
I don't know what happened. I lost it all. All
right.
There we go.
Continue. Dan, I'm sorry, I've lost complete control of this podcast.
Before you get to Ryan, I think it's a complete overreaction. I mean, you look at last season, as a Spurs fan, we went in there and we destroyed the Warriors. I don't know if you remember that. The Spurs, they destroyed Golden State on opening night. Same thing happened with the Rockets.
It was your Spurs.
I'm sorry.
So I'm just saying complete overreaction because look at the outcome. The Warriors win the championship. So that's all I'm going to say. Overreaction.
All right. Well, that just ruined it because someone's trying to call me. So we'll just talk about this another time.
Ryan?
We're not going to agree anyway. So
we were talking about the Gordon Hayward thing. I didn't get to put my Thomas Take stamp on it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you had a definitive stamp on it.
Oh, I got a stamp.
Do you have an actual stamp? Do you have an actual stamp?
No, you know what? I don't think I do, to be honest.
You need to get
one.
But
I think what is going to happen, basketball is known for cinematic moments. Obviously, buzzer beaters. Ray Allen with the Jesus Shuttlesworth buzzer beater in the finals.
Don't ever bring that up again. Don't bring that up again.
Gordon Hayward is going to be out all of this season. He's going to come back for the Celtics. They will go to the NBA Finals and play LeBron James and the LA Lakers.
Woo.
That's what I think is going to happen.
Quite a jump for LA there.
That's what I think is going to happen.
Remain silent. And I thought what I said was bad.
No, let me add on to what you were saying.
Please do. I am more than willing to
if the ancient Carmelo Anthony in OKC is not going to do anything to what people think he's going to do, I think it's going to be Houston and Golden State in the Western Conference Finals, and I think it's going to be still the Celtics and Cavs, and the Cavs will probably beat them in 5 games.
We'll see what happens.
Okay, well, let me wrap that up and say, yes, I think that's a little bit of overreaction. That yes, the Golden State Warriors.
I had to put a stamp on it.
You did a great job.
Oh,
sir.
you put a stamp on it.
You put the Thomas Take stamp on it.
Stepped into a bucket.
I don't know how to say it. I've lost it, Dan. I've lost control here.
You guys don't think LeBron will go? You guys don't think LeBron will go to the Lakers? I think he will.
Okay, that's where. Okay, Brandon, get a hold of this now before Ryan goes on to a tangent I don't want to listen to. Please, get a hold of this.
So we have LeBron going to the Lakers next year and meeting Kyrie and Gordon Hayward in the championship. I guess that says
he's
says the baseball guy. So take.
I'm gonna throw a UFC reference. Or Orlando will know this one. LeBron is gonna Stockton slap Lonzo Ball.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
What?
Okay.
What is happening right now? Oh my gosh.
You might slap. Dan, might Stockton slap LeVar too.
Because even I know. This is what Ryan, I don't know what you put him through last week, but my goodness.
Yeah, this has been nuts. Dan, I need you back. Episode 31. I need you right back in your Buffalo studio.
Are you not entertained?
Okay, Brandon, come on. We got to promote the site. We got to get out.
That's it. No more fantasy mailbag questions. Let's see. That last one, in case y'all missed it, was Kevin Wagner. Thanks for all the questions all week, guys. We got to as many as we can. Check out the website, myfantasysportstalk.com. We've got our Pick'em segment up. Look for the Pick'em segment up to be for Thursday night picks is up right now. Look for the entire piece to be up by Saturday, by this weekend. Karen McCall is dumping out Flash articles, The Flash, in case you're interested in that. Now, also on the site this week, Malachi David released a couple of good pieces looking at the NBA season opener, which was last night. Take a look back and see how he did on that. Then he broke down the real MVP, in which he had Kawhi Leonard as the number 1 suspect on his list, which should make Orlando very happy. But other than that, a whole lot of entertainment stuff going on the website right now. Thanks to the whole crew, Ryan Thomas, Dylan Davis Gerardo, and Orlando Torres for all the entertainment that they provided me this week, and I hope they provided entertainment for you. Check out the podcast on myfantasysportstalk.com. Check it out on YouTube. In case you missed it live tonight and all this craziness on YouTube, you can check out those replays on YouTube. Check us out on SoundCloud and check us out on WBLZsports.com. For all these guys, I'm Brandon Reed. Till next week. See you later. Peace.